I suppose if the Beatles, all the other three, were really wild, keen to do it, and it looked like a real great thing to go and do, then there's like a real slim chance that I'd kind of say, yeah, okay.
It's quite possible, yes. I don't know why the hell we'd do it, but it's possible. Would you like that to happen? If it happens, I'll enjoy it.
We've always really been friends. I mean, we've always talked to each other, you know. I saw everyone. Yeah. Basically, because I'm in England, I see George and Paul. Yeah. And in America, I saw John. I mean, John and Paul haven't seen each other because of the 3,000 miles different, mainly, you know, in the travelling. But that was all. I'm sure if John had still been here, they'd have met each other. We'd have all met each other. You know?
Yeah. Just physically, we're all in different places now, and we don't spend time together anymore. You know, that's the problem. We'd have to get to know each other again, because we haven't sort of hung around together like we did in the past. So, I mean, everybody's into their own lives. It seems very difficult, the idea of getting together.
The question of a possible Beatles reunion haunted John, Paul, George, and Ringo throughout the 1970s.
Does the media campaign to get the Beatles to reunite annoy you?
Yeah, a bit, you know, but there's nothing you can do about it, so I don't get really annoyed.
The band's breakup in 1970 left a void in their fans, who longed to see them together once more. Every move, every tour, every collaboration between two or more former members, every rumor opened the door to the idea that maybe, just maybe, it could happen. Over time, the wounds began to heal, but the dream of seeing the Beatles together again never came true. But the real question is, how close did they come to reuniting? Was there ever a serious conversation about it? Were there any moments when it almost happened? In this video, we look back at the key events that could have changed music history.
Okay. How close were the Beatles to getting back together? Guys, shout outs to Dana Biladu for doing this. You know, we already started watching this. We are in like 2 minutes and 6 seconds. You know, the Beatles got closer to a 1970s reunion, you know, than you think. Yeah, so we continue, you know, to watch it and, you know, find out if, I mean, like what the circumstances were that led to the Beatles almost reuniting. Yeah, this video is quite long. Spans a little over 28 minutes, you know, so stick with me. Let's watch this together and, you know, I'll give my honest little take about it. Let's go.
We grew up, you know, I was married with kids, John was getting, you know, divorced and Yoko, Paul was getting Linda, Joy, and we've got our own houses and we wanted to do separate things. I don't think there's any one thing, they all came about, you know. It's like divorce. I mean, I just went through a divorce and there wasn't a day that said this is the end of it. I mean, you have all those days that lead up to it, and that's what our breakup was like, you know, like the niggly days and the days aren't so good, and, you know, you get pissed off with that, or that went wrong. So I can't see you putting your finger on it. It's a joke the way they blame it on Linda or Yoko, you know. I mean, they are probably factors in it, as much as I was a factor in it.
But well, it wasn't just me. All of us did that. Yeah. It was a kind of reaction we all had. George made an album called All Things Must Pass, which was a big successful thing. When he toured, he didn't do any Beatles stuff. John, when he did any concerts, it was all Instant Karma, stuff with Yoko. We all left all the Beatles stuff alone because it reminded us of the pain of the divorce kind of thing. And also, obviously, the other question in all of our minds was, is there life after the Beatles? You know, or do we have to be Beatles all our lives?
The end of the Beatles left all four members scarred, but their early solo careers reflected why each needed to move on independently. Ringo started off strong, landing gold records with hits like It Don't Come Easy and Back Off Boogaloo, while also maintaining his acting career and building a solo image. George seemed liberated, receiving international praise for All Things Must Pass and organizing the groundbreaking concert for Bangladesh. Lennon explored his political side and released Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, proving his worth as a solo artist. Paul, despite a rocky start with his debut album and harsh reviews, found his footing with Ram and reaffirmed his need to be in a band by forming Wings. Meanwhile, Lawyers, lawsuits over the band's dissolution, hostile press statements, and a clear distance, especially from John, George, and Ringo toward Paul, killed any hopes of a quick reunion. The wounds were still raw, and the four of them tried to distance themselves from anything Beatles related. A reunion at this point was nearly impossible.
Yeah.
But you're a Beatle, you've had all the success. Do you think you're going to make it again in the past?
I don't know about as successful as, it's a bit hard to be as successful as the Beatles, you know. I mean, I'm not shooting for to be as successful as the Beatles necessarily, but the main thing is I like to be in work, you know, that's the main thing for me. And if it's successful work, then that's better than unsuccessful.
When you grow up, you know, we don't want to be the crazy gang, which they might know over here, which is British, or the Marx Brothers, which is sort of being dragged on stage playing She Loves You when we've got, you know, asthma and tuberculosis, and when we're 50, you know.
Yeah,
so a long time ago I said that I didn't want to be singing She Loves You when I'm 30. I said that when I was about 25 or something, which in a roundabout way meant that I wouldn't be doing whatever I was doing then, you know, at 30. Well, I was 30 last October, and that's about when my life changed.
Do you think it's heading that way? You've really answered.
I didn't read it.
About you reforming
Yeah,
again.
there's no answer to that.
No answer to that. It's in the lap of the gods.
Well, we're the gods.
Right.
Another good quote.
Are you tired of people asking you whether the Beatles will get together again?
Not tired.
Because they're always asking me, you see.
Well, I know. Well, imagine if they're always asking you, imagine how many people ask me.
Yes.
And that's all anyone ever says, you know. And no one of us can answer that.
No.
That's the point.
There has been a report recently that you have said that you might get back with the Beatles. Is this true?
Well, I mean, the thing is, not really, no. The thing is that the business worries that were there are kind of gradually clearing up. So there's a possibility to do things with the Beatles and stuff, but I wouldn't think we get back together as a band.
Not going on stage together?
No, I wouldn't think so. I don't think any of us fancy it, to tell you the truth.
Do you think you've all gone your own way so much that you can't get back together musically?
Maybe, yeah, something like that.
What about the problems of you going to America and John Lennon coming out of America at the moment?
What about it?
Well, that'll stop you.
Yes, that's the problem, yeah. That's one of the problems anyway.
It takes a lot to live with four people over and over for years and years, which is what we did. And we'd called each other every name under the sun. We'd got to blows. We'd been through the whole damn show. We knew where we're at. We still do. We'd been through the mill together for more than 10 years. You know. We've been through our therapy together many times, you know.
So you're not making a definite conscious effort then to break away from the old Beatles image, are you not?
No, not really, you know. I mean, the only thing about it is the Beatles has finished as a band, so I couldn't very well continue it. But all we're doing is we've got a new band now, and I'm just kind of continuing. And if it comes out a bit like the Beatles, I don't think it will. But if it did, it wouldn't worry me, you know. It's a pretty good band.
I don't really remember anything about the Beatle days. It seems like a sort of, you know, previous incarnation when I think about it. They can't understand why we should actually enjoy splitting up. But there's a time, you know, when people grow up and they leave home or whatever they do, and they go for a change, you know, and it was really time for a change.
In August 1971, George Harrison organizes a concert for Bangladesh at Madison Square Garden. For the first time since the breakup, two ex-Beatles, George and Ringo, shared a stage.
I don't know why.
The show was a musical and humanitarian milestone, a glimmer of hope for fans longing for a full reunion. Around that time, George and John were still close. George had even played guitar on Lennon's Imagine album. Lennon had initially agreed to join the concert, but a disagreement with George over Yoko Ono's exclusion led him to back out. Meanwhile, Paul refused to attend for legal reasons. He was in the middle of a lawsuit to dissolve the band officially and felt that appearing at the concert would weaken his case. Plus, he didn't want to be associated with Alan Klein, who was helping organize the show. The emotional wounds were still fresh. It was a lost opportunity.
A lot of what he says, you know, is pretty right.
Were you invited on the Bangladesh concert
Yeah, but
at
it's
all?
like, don't bother me, man.
Yes, I was invited on it, yes. But for me, I mean, it's a long story, all that, because, you know, the thing is, like I say, I mean, for me, the only thing is, if I'd gone there, I know for certain, I may be crazy to think it, but I know for certain that it would have been played up as, hey, the Beatles are back together again. You know, and it may have only been for one night, but, you know, when in fact the truth is it's not. It's ended. It has definitely ended, you know. And,
I don't really want to go out in a big package tour, especially maybe with the others, because the thing that spoiled the Bangladesh thing for me was it was all about the Beatles on tour, you know, as if the Beatles were playing. And if I go out, I think I'll just go out with people that aren't the Beatles, you know, like other people. So there was a moment where we all think that's a good idea, but nothing was ever settled.
Oh, because I thought it was a great idea.
It might be, but I don't know, you know.
And it just happened. That's again why I get taken places. John was there and George was there. So I go to John and say, well, I'm doing an album. Have you got any songs? He says, well, I've got one I'll finish for you. He was in the Beverly Hills with his piano. So he did one song. So he finished a song for me. So George was there. I said, George, give us a song. You know, they're the writers. Have you got a song? So he says, yeah, I've got a song. So I said, well, come and play. He says, okay. And John says, okay. So we have the one track with John, George, and Ringo on it, right? Then I thought, well, you know, we'll get Paul. You know, I talked to him as well. So we phoned Paul in England and said, come on, you can't be left out of this. I've got a John track, I've got George's track, and I've got the other two on it, you know. Have you got any tracks? He says, yeah, I've got a track. So I was going to England, so I said, come on, Richard, we'll go to England.
After the breakup, Ringo's star became an unexpected bridge between the former Beatles. In 1973, he released Ringo, his third studio album and first major success as a solo artist. What made it special wasn't just its success, but the fact that all four Beatles contributed. They didn't record together, but they were all part of the project. John wrote and produced I'm the Greatest, featuring George and Ringo. Lennon even remarked that it was the closest they'd come to being the Beatles again. Paul contributed 6 O'Clock and recorded with Ringo in separate studios. It was clear they all supported their drummer. They gave him songs, joined in as session players, and celebrated his achievements. While not an official reunion, it rekindled the dream.
How do you feel about the constant rumors, John, that the Beatles will be getting back together? Those crop up probably every couple months. Does that irritate you?
A couple of years back it might have done, but now, you know, it doesn't at all, you know. And sometimes I think, oh, are they? You know, I mean, it's a weird feeling.
Meanwhile, John and Paul began patching things up. In 1973, during a break from Yoko Ono, Lennon entered his chaotic but productive Lost Weekend period. He moved to Los Angeles with Mai Pang and reconnected with old friends, including Paul. In February 1974, Paul and Linda visited him in the studio while Lennon was producing Harry Nilsson's Pussycats. The session turned into a chaotic jam that included Stevie Wonder and others. The recordings, later bootlegged as A Toot and a Snore in '74, were low quality but symbolically important. John and Paul were together again.
But we might do bits together, you know, we don't know yet. There's every chance we might just feel like getting together and doing something, you know.
Since the split, each one of the Beatles has gone his own way and has enjoyed a tremendous amount of popularity, but still the question, will they ever team up again?
It's quite possible, yes. I don't know why the hell we'd do it, but it's possible.
Would you like that to happen?
If it happens, I'll enjoy it.
Would you want to initiate that happening?
John was optimistic.
Well, I couldn't say.
If you could, I mean, is it something you would like to see yourself doing?
If I could. I don't know, Ellie, because you know me, I go on instinct, and if the idea hit me tomorrow, you know, I might call them and say, come on, let's do something. And so I couldn't really tell you. If it happens, it'll happen.
So it is not something that you would totally rule out as never taking place again?
No, my memories are now all fond, and the wounds are healed, and if we do it, we do it. If we record, we record. I don't know. As long as we make music. You know.
That same year, Paul mentioned in interviews that he'd recently spoken with John. After a long phone call about Britain's decline, he realized he'd forgotten to ask the big question, would they ever reunite? Paul also told John about his plans to record Venus and Mars in New Orleans and tour the US. According to Mai Pang, Lennon seriously considered joining him to write and possibly tour together. But, as was often the case with John, it was more a passing thought than a real plan.
At one point, he asked me, he goes, I was thinking, I wonder what it'd be like if I started to write with Paul again. What do you think? And I said to him, are you crazy? I said, it would be great.
He soon returned to New York and reconciled with Yoko, ending another promising opportunity.
John was a lot of bravado involved in what John said.
You don't believe that he meant
I don't
that?
believe it, not for one tiny second. I know for a fact he missed them. He talked to Yoko and she says, yeah, he missed them. I talked to him on the phone. He said, you could tell he missed them, but John was not the kind of guy, he's like,
How about
he's
you?
the kind of guy you'd thump in the mouth. He said, did that hurt? He said, no. You knew it hurt.
How about you?
Not that I ever did thump him in the mouth.
Do you miss
About me?
even now?
Yeah, I think the point is, that the Beatles was a great band. We came out of Liverpool together. We did a lot of great things together. And so I think there was a point when we missed them. I think that was shortly after the breakup, maybe the first 5 years after the breakup. After that, I think John would start to be right, that we'd miss them less and less as we each formed our new lives.
I can't interview any ex-members of that group without asking the question that everybody is forever asking. I noticed that you're wearing a sweatshirt that says the Beatles Reunion Tour 76.
Road crew.
Road crew.
Don't forget road crew. I'm on the road crew if they get together.
I'm going to play Robbie Reporter now for a moment.
Yes, go on.
A Beatle reunion. Do you want it or not? That's a yes or no question. Would you like the four of you to get together one glorious night to do it up on the stage live?
As a straight answer, yes.
Okay. Now the second question.
No, but you see, that can't be the answer. No, you can't lay that on me, It cannot be the answer. There's too much involved.
Too much involved
to get it together. Yeah, to make it possible. I would love for the four of us to play. Don't know if it'll work. I don't see why it shouldn't, because I just going from like the Ringo album was John, George and I was the closest we ever got to a reunion, and it was fine. I love playing, and then I played with Paul. Well, it was interesting. John and Paul never played their own acts. They both played piano, whatever that may mean. But John on the last album played guitar. Paul wasn't on it. Paul is a fine bass player. John is the greatest rhythm guitarist around. George is a fine lead guitarist. Yep. And I'm a fine drummer.
Absolutely.
Whatever I may say. So, I would dig that. But then you've got to get into the rest of it, of getting it actually together. Like we're all busy. Like what time. Like which country. Like what are we going to do. There's lots of other questions that go on that haven't been answered until the four of us. I've talked to John about it, and we've gone through it, and, I've got my problems about it, he's got his problems. Just if it was a setup on the lawn outside here, and we just happened to be around, we could play, then I'd love it. I'd love it, it doesn't matter where it was, but that would be easy. But to set up this thing takes a lot of craziness.
By 1976, seeing all four Beatles active again reignited hopes of a live reunion. Around that time, their former label, Capitol Records, released Gotta Get You Into My Life as a single for the first time, 10 years after it originally appeared on Revolver, in what felt like a quiet celebration of the band's renewed popularity. Capitol also began issuing a series of compilation albums, like Rock and Roll Music, without any direct input from the Beatles themselves. These releases sparked a new wave of Beatlemania and fueled both fan excitement and a flood of reunion offers.
The inevitable question.
Are they ever going to get back together?
Yeah. First of all, is there any possibility? But secondly, much more important, do you think that it's a good idea?
Well, that's another point altogether, whether it'd be a good idea or not. You see, it's strange, because at one period when they're asking me, I was saying, no, never, what the hell, go back, no, not me. And then there came to a period when I thought, well, why not? If we felt like making a record or doing something, everybody always envisages the stage show. To me, if we worked together at studio again, the stage show something else. If we got something to say in a studio, okay. Now, when I'm saying that, I turn the paper and George is saying, not me, right? It's never got to a position where each one of us have wanted to do it at the same time. I think over the period of being apart, we've all thought, oh, that wouldn't be nice. That wouldn't be bad, you know. I mean, I've worked with Ringo and George. I haven't worked with Paul because we had a more difficult time, but now we're pretty close, you know.
This resurgence led to a wave of massive offers from promoters eager to reunite the Fab Four. One of the most famous came from Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels, who in April 1976 jokingly offered the Beatles $3,000, the union minimum, to appear on the show.
The National Broadcasting Company has authorized me to offer you a certified check for $3,000. Now here it is, as you can see, verifiably, it is a check made out to you, the Beatles, for $3,000. You divide it any way you want. If you want to give Ringo less, that's up to you. Just think about it, okay? Thank you.
What Michaels didn't know was that Paul was visiting John and Yoko that night at their Dakota apartment. They were actually watching the show. The SNL studio at 30 Rockefeller Center was just a few blocks away. Paul joked that they should take a cab and show up. John was tempted, but eventually decided against it. That private moment, both humorous and heartbreaking, inspired the 2000 film Two of Us. Shortly after, George Harrison appeared on SNL and tried to claim the $3,000 alone. Michaels declined, saying he needed all four Beatles.
I thought that you would understand that if it was, you know, $3,000 for four people, then it would just be $750 for each.
You know, we've all leading our own lives. It's been 8 years, really. And I don't think an ad in the paper is going to do the trick. We have to want it personally ourselves. And not just to make $50 million or whatever the figure may be. We must do it because we want to be together as people first, and secondly, to be together for the music, and then everything else would fall into place. But at the moment, everybody is doing their own lives, and it feels to me a bit like saying, please go back to school. You know, that was like our apprenticeship. Yeah.
Ever see the Beatles on stage again, either performing or standing together?
Well, I think they stand up for each other every day, but together, if you say hi, if you say, just some people arrived, if you say anything with a possible yes in it, of course, then it's all over the world. You know, Ringo says they're getting together. But all I say is, you know, and I say no, because, I mean, it won't be this year, and I doubt it'll be next year, and it could be in 10 years, it could be in 5 years, you know. I mean, we could actually get together. There's nothing stopping us, really, bar the time and what we all want to do ourselves. You know, I'm not too interested in getting us together right now. You know, I'm interested to go into the studio and we could try and do something.
George Harrison stated, if you want the Beatles, go see Wings. Is that a presumptuous sort of a statement?
Yes, I don't think Wings are as good as the Fab Four were. But they have one of the Fab Four in it, you see. And he's very good.
Meanwhile, Paul McCartney was enjoying one of his most successful post-Beatles periods. In 1976, Wings toured the US and Europe with huge success. With packed stadiums, glowing reviews, and record sales, Paul had no need to look back.
On the score of the Beatles, why are the Beatles not going to come together again, or when?
The Beatles split in '69, and since then, they've been doing fine. And if that question doesn't cease, ain't no one gonna get no peace. And if you ask it just once more, I think I'm gonna break your jaw. Thank you, Raymond.
Toward the end of the decade, Ringo had a rough patch. Personally and artistically, he struggled. His solo career was losing momentum, and his drinking worsened. Of the four, he was in the weakest position for a reunion. By 1977 and 1978, the idea of getting back together seemed increasingly unlikely. Lennon was fully retired, focused on raising a son, Sean. George was running his record label and starting a new chapter as a film producer. Paul, left with only Linda and Denny Lane, had to rebuild Wings from scratch. After his arrest in Japan, the band essentially fell apart.
I suppose if the Beatles, all the other three, were really wild, keen to do it, and it looked like a real great thing to go and do, then there's like a real slim chance that I'd kind of say, yeah, okay.
One moment in 1979 offered a glimmer of what could have been. Eric Clapton married Pattie Boyd that March. Paul, George, and Ringo attended. John did not. Not because he refused, but because he wasn't invited. Lennon later said he would have gladly gone if asked. There was never an official reason for his exclusion. By then, he was distant from most guests, and nobody quite knew his mood. Rumors in the UK painted him as a recluse. Though he could legally return to England, he chose to stay in New York. Mick Jagger, who also lived in the Dakota, once slipped a note under Lennon's door. John returned it, asking not to be disturbed. At the wedding, Paul, George, and Ringo played together in an impromptu jam session. The impromptu performance marked the first time the three former Beatles had played in public together since the group's final performance on the Apple rooftop on January 30th, 1969.
The missing factor is the enthusiasm at the moment, which is fair enough. You know, I mean, we did our bit. I think the four of us would probably just prefer to like leave it as it was, and leave the whole story intact rather than sort of coming back and doing some disastrous reunion show.
By 1980, for the first time in years, a Beatles reunion didn't seem entirely out of reach. John Lennon had come out of retirement and returned to the spotlight with fresh energy. He spent much of the year recording Double Fantasy with Yoko Ono. During this time, he openly discussed the possibility of working with Paul McCartney again. They were back in touch and enjoying a warm, easy friendship.
It was very special to me that we reached that point, actually, because, you know, you'd had the whole horrible thing of the group breaking up. I think we just realized, come on, guys, we love each other. What are we doing? We're messing around. And I ring John, and I was baking bread and got quite good at it, you know. So when I heard John was doing it, it was great. We could just talk about something so ordinary. There's no threat or anything. It was just two guys talking about, well, I don't know, do you leave it overnight? Or what do you do? You know, and so on. So I said, yeah, I leave it overnight in a hot cupboard. And you'd just be chatting, and it was really nice. And I was so glad that we got back to that relationship that we'd always had, you know, when we were kids. We'd lived in each other's pockets for so long that it was great to get back to that.
In interviews, John said he had no issue collaborating with Paul again if the moment was right. Remarkably, in his new contract with Geffen Records, John included a clause allowing him to record and perform as the Beatles if he chose to. It wasn't a firm commitment, but it was an open door. Ironically, while Lennon had distanced himself the most from the Beatles myth after the breakup, he also talked the most about a potential reunion throughout the 70s. Sometimes with sarcasm, sometimes with longing, depending on the day. That same year, Lennon mentioned a documentary Neil Aspinall was working on, The Long and Winding Rope, which would become the Beatles anthology 15 years later. For many, this was the ultimate sign that all four were ready to reflect on their past together. Also, at the end of November, Ringo visited John Lennon in New York to participate in the recording of Stop and Smell the Roses. Lennon offered Starr 2 demos, Nobody Told Me and Life Begins at 40, and they set January 14th, 1981 as the date to record the songs. But the tragedy of December 8 not only ended Lennon's life, but also the dream of a Beatles reunion. It's easy to imagine that he had lived. Live Aid in 1985, or some special event might have brought them back together. Not as a band, but perhaps for one last performance. But it never happened. The last time all four Beatles were in the same room was in October 1969. After that, just fleeting reunions, pairings, phone calls, sessions apart. What remains is the music, the legacy, and the what-ifs that still echo through time. In 1980, outside the Dakota Building in New York, a fan asked John Lennon when the Beatles would reunite. Smiling, he replied, "Tomorrow."
All All right, guys. So that was this video titled "The Beatles Got Closer to a 1970s Reunion Than You Think." Shout out to Dana Biladu for throwing this video my way, guys. This is a suggestion via donation. Yeah. You guys already saw that. I mean, we all just finished watching this video. And honestly, I'm still here, in disbelief. As a lifelong, somewhat Beatles fan, I've always considered, about the what ifs. What if, they had, patched things up. What if the music, kept coming. And this video really dug into that possibility in a way that really hit me hard, I have to say. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I always assumed the door was completely shut after the breakup 1970, but hearing about the close calls, the moments where John, Paul, George, and Ringo were actually almost in the same orbit again, that really shook me. I found myself leaning in like wait, this actually could have happened. The thing that really got me was the human side of it. I could feel how much the weight of their history, the fame and the personal struggles stood in the way. But at the same time, I couldn't stop thinking about how different music history might have been if just one of those moments had lined up right. I will admit, I got a little emotional, because the Beatles aren't just a band for me personally, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. They are the band. They are the band, Yeah, after watching this video, I categorically have to say again that what I loved about this video is that it doesn't just tease fans with what ifs. I mean, it made me personally feel the reality of how close we came to hearing new Beatles music in the 70s. I honestly walked away with more appreciation for the music they gave us, but also with this bittersweet feeling of knowing we were just inches away from something magical, guys. I mean, the part where Ringo, was going to record music with John Lennon, and then John got murdered tragically, was something that really hit me hard. And yeah, so rest in peace to John Lennon, rest in peace to George Harrison. Yeah, so yeah, this one got me, as a fan, as a reactor, as someone, who has built, so many memories around the Beatles, music. I can't stop replaying the thought of, 1970s, Beatles reaction. Yeah, let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section. Let me know if you want me to continue doing videos, such as this one on the channel. I'll be so glad to do just that. Let me know your thoughts down there. Name is Philip, and on to the next reaction. Take care, stay safe, peace out.